It is hard to believe that the Super Smash Bros. Series is essentially 25 years old this year, so I thought it would be a good excuse to bring back my gaming memory series on my channel. But how did it all begin? What are my fondest memories of this series? Well, let's see. Let's start by briefly explaining the Super Smash Bros. Series and its origins for those who don't know them. Developer Masahiro Sakurai, best known for creating Kirby, was interested in making a more unconventional fighting game that emphasized 4 players and a combination of simplicity and improvisation that would not require health bars and especially the understanding of complex combos featured in most fighting games. Something kinda Brian would probably appreciate in Clueless Gamer. The problem was though, the game initially titled Dragon King the Fighting Game didn't have a strong selling point, so Sakurai decided to replace the placeholder models with famous Nintendo characters. Yeah, Nintendo would totally allow that. And if the commercial that came out of nowhere for me on a TV in the late 90s was any indication, this crossover fighting game idea was great for letting me play as Pikachu. Yeah, I started really getting into Pokemon at the time and mostly wanted to play as Pikachu on my Nintendo 64. Renting the game at first, it was fairly different to what I was expecting. Sure, I know you could have Mario, Yoshi, Donkey Kong and Pikachu fighting each other, but how would the game work? Again, there were no complex combos or health bars, just a damage percentage that would increase with each hit. The higher it was, the more likely you would be progressively knocked further back away from the stage. And on top of that, there was quite a roster of characters. I had heard of The Legend of Zelda and have played Star Fox 64, aka like that was, and Kirby games, so of course I recognised Link, Fox and Kirby. But who's this Samus? See my Gaming Memories Metroid episode for that one. I did not know Captain Falcon was an F-Zero character, just heard of the series name, and Ness was especially a complete mystery to me. Still, I had to gradually learn about using the control stick and buttons effectively for effective attacks, special moves, and jumping and recovering. I wasn't amazing at the game for the most part, but it didn't stop me from enjoying the game and playing it with other people whenever possible. It was rented quite a few times, I'll tell you that. I did not expect a sequel at all to this game. In fact, UK gaming magazines, yes, you could get those in Australia, such as Nintendo 64 magazine revealed through coverage of E3 2001 that the Nintendo GameCube was coming. A bunch of interesting games were made, including Super Smash Bros. Melee. Just looking at screenshots was enough, and it was not long after I decided to get a GameCube partially for this game. Maybe the GameCube deserves its own Gaming Memories video, but Super Smash Bros. Melee was one of the first games I got for the system. One of the magazines revealed an intriguing F-Zero stage, and I started there. Already, the roster of characters, the very fast action, the amount of content and so on kept me playing this game for many hours, and it was a multiplayer constant. Years passed, and a successor to the Nintendo GameCube that changed names from Revolution to Wii was revealed to much excitement. Surely the next game in the series titled Super Smash Bros. Brawl was also full of hype, least of all for the trailers and character reveals.
Yeah, but Solid Snake.
I do remember that the game seemed to be delayed several times until it finally came out in 2008. I'm pretty sure I got it on release day, and just like Melee before it, the first session with it lasted for hours, and there were countless more sessions after that. Super Smash Bros. Brawl was packed with characters, stages and content yet again, yet it didn't seem to be as well received in multiplayer sessions. Maybe it was because it was slower than Melee or had tripping, or maybe it was because it was released close to when I was starting university and fitting in time for multiplayer gaming was harder. Didn't help that the online for the game wasn't exactly stable or full of options. Still, the game was generally exceptional. A few years after the release of Brawl, it was announced alongside the reveal of the Wii U that that system and the 3DS would get a new Super Smash Bros. Game. As I vaguely mentioned in one of my videos uploaded in late 2018, I was going on a long trip in 2014, and outside of playing the 3DS during that time, I wasn't sure if I was going to really get a new gaming system. However, I figured I would get the Wii U and digitally bundled with Mario Kart 8. Of course, what did I want to play the most on that system? Super Smash Bros. For Wii U. Wait, that was the title? I remember especially getting the 3DS game when I moved into my new place, and spent my first night there just playing Super Smash Bros. For 3DS. Then the Wii U version came out the following month, and I was so excited that I even made a video of my first time playing it on a very old and now gone YouTube account. Oh hey, I did gaming videos before 2017, how about that? I dare say Super Smash Bros. For Wii U was probably the biggest game ever at the time. I tried to practice it more than the other games so I could participate in a couple of tournaments at a gaming bar. I barely got any further than 1 or 2 rounds, but I had fun. The online was improved over the previous game, and the DLC, including the surprise inclusions of Bayonetta and Cloud, or the returning Mewtwo and Lucas, alongside unique modes of content such as Smash Run, kept me coming back to the games. Okay, the Nintendo Switch gets revealed later on. I do not get it on release, but at least I get Zelda Breath of the Wild for Wii U because I couldn't pass that up. Still, I eventually decided to get a Switch bundled with Super Mario Odyssey and pay more attention to the Nintendo Directs. Come early March 2018, there's a Direct with quite a few games. At the end there is a... Wait, we've already seen Splatoon? Surely there's something more. Wait, is that the Smash logo in the Inkling's eye? To quote Arlo, "Whoa! Whoa!" And it just says Super Smash Bros. Was it a port? Was it a new game? Well, it was revealed over the following months that it was to be called Super Smash Bros. Ultimate and feature all the characters from past games. All of them? Sign me up! I first played a demo of the game at PAX in 2018 and enjoyed it. My anticipation was met on a hot summer day when the game was released worldwide and, well, you've seen my long review series. That should show how much I love the game. But is it my favourite game in the series? Well, that leads on to the conclusion and my overall thoughts on the series. What started as an out-of-nowhere interest in playing as Pikachu in a weird crossover fighting game turned into an obsession with a series of fighting games that had the aforementioned core idea of simplicity and improvisation, but with different characters, stages, content and gimmicks with each entry. It was especially with Super Smash Bros. Melee I took more of an interest in the history of Nintendo characters and their series of games, and maybe gaming history in general. If it weren't for the series, I wouldn't have discovered Samus and her Metroid series, or Ness and the Mother/Earthbound games, or Fire Emblem, and maybe Xenoblade Chronicles, but I'm not sure I discovered that through Smash. The series was a constant go-to for multiplayer sessions, and lots of fun, though it's not without flaws. With the tournaments of Super Smash Bros. Melee came more of a hardcore crowd for the series that still exists to this day and may be toxic at times, whether it's complaining about Brawl's slower speed or possibly suggesting that any match that is not a raw fighting match on Final Destination is not how you play the game. Heck, I didn't even play Project M, the mod for Super Smash Bros. Brawl that apparently makes it faster, and Nintendo saw fit to intervene with tournament rules and venue rules and conventions, plus fan changes to Melee, preventing it from being played online during the C-virus. And also, single player is sometimes not as fun as playing with others, but hey, I could boot up any game in the series and play against the AI for a few minutes any given day. It's a testament to the quality of the series for a game that would allow you to customize chaotic fighting matches with lots of items and hazards while also reminding or informing us of the history of Nintendo and indeed games in general would last the number of years it has. Melee and Ultimate are probably my 2 favourite games in the series, but I like all the games. Happy 25 years, Super Smash Bros. You will remain part of my gaming memories.
Congratulations!